Hello, MBA hopefuls, and welcome to MBA Waves. My name is Eric Lucrezia, your host for today. As always, joined by my colleague, Bara Sapir. Hey, Bara.
Hey, good to see everyone. Welcome. I'm great. It's great to be here. Whenever we come on these shows and we have guests from abroad, I'm always envious about being in faraway places out of the United States for a little bit. But I don't know when that's going to happen next. But it's great to be here and it's great to see you all.
Yes, I'm super excited about today's episode. It's the first time we're having a joint episode. Today we have Imperial College Business School in London, as well as GMAC Europe. And I'm about to introduce our guest for today. Today's episode is the future of MBAs in Europe, or graduate management education, I should say, in Europe. And so without further ado, I'm going to start with our first guest, Nalisha Patel from GMAC Europe. Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me and Joel on the show. It's been, I know that you've had some rallying to do with my slightly chaotic emails, but I really appreciate, really looking forward to chatting today. And thanks for having us.
Yeah, same here. And last but not least, Joël McConnell from Imperial. Welcome, Joel.
Hello, thank you very much. Tuning in from not so sunny in the Algarve in southern Portugal. We're hosting a conference on the blockchain economy here this week.
That's awesome. So once again, welcome to MBA Waves. And today's episode, as I said, is about the future of graduate management education in Europe. So there's a lot to talk about today. Bara, why don't you start us off?
Sure. Well, I'd love to hear what's new and exciting at Imperial, Joel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, it's a dynamic place, and it's London, so there's always lots of things going on. I guess the sort of three things I would mention here. Primarily we are sort of a science-based university, and so our research and our research centers play a pretty important role to what we do. So we just had our Center for Digital Transformation lead our delegation to the World Economic Forum in Davos. That was a big one for us in the late part of May. And then just yesterday, we announced a new decarbonization research center that is going to tackle climate change. And that's going to be co-led by one of our directors at the business school. So very exciting news from a sort of research and centers perspective. Otherwise, QS World University Rankings came out, 7th globally from Imperial, right between Caltech and ETH Zurich. Good place to be for us. And then finally, I might mention that we have just expanded our program portfolio. Not only are we doing a full portfolio of MSCs and MBA programs, but we also are now offering our first full Bachelor's of Science degree in economics, finance, and data science.
Great, thanks.
Wow, super exciting. Congratulations on the new rankings. That's awesome.
Yeah,
and as we mentioned, we're also joined by GMAC. So Nalisha, could you tell the audience a bit about what you do besides being the creators of this infamous test known as the GMAC?
Yes, the infamous test. And apologies, I should roll back one step, because in my keenness to say how excited I was to join you, I probably should have given a little bit more of an intro for context as to kind of my background and why I'm on the show today. But just to kind of, it leads me in, well, thanks, Eric. It leads me well into the question anyway. So look, I've been in graduate education for the last kind of almost coming up to 15 years across numerous functions. I've been in kind of recruitment, marketing. A large portion I spent in the actual program creation, program delivery, program leadership, across degree education and executive education. My last specific business school role was actually at London Business School, where I was leading the degree programs over there. But my current role is for GMAC, and that's my capacity that I'm here today. I've been in the role for almost a year, and my role is overseeing our European office. So we are a US head office based organization, but we're a global organization and we have offices all around the world. So I look after the Europe team, and where, our role is to manage our European based clients who are the business schools who are looking for global talent. And then we also manage the European candidates who are looking to go out into the global business education market. So that's kind of a bit of scene setting. But in terms of kind of telling you a little bit more about what we do, and yes, besides just the infamous test, which of course I'm sure all of our listeners will be by now very well aware of, and I'm happy to talk a little bit about that a little bit later on. But just to kind of give you a little bit more context about GMAC and kind of what we do. I guess our overall purpose is to match talent. So our mission title is to ensure that no talent goes unmatched. And as I mentioned, that means kind of helping our business school clients find and attract talent and to reach the candidates directly and the talented to connect them on their business school journey. So that's kind of the overarching theme, but that kind of sits with three focuses, I would say. So the first one, which is a huge part of what we do, is we are advocates for graduate education and the benefits of doing education. And that can be, that we see that's value from people from all walks of life. And I'll talk a little bit about our initiatives around kind of inclusion and diversity a little later. But a part of this advocacy piece of our organization is that we publish extensive research in the sector from work with corporate recruiters, prospective students, from the member organizations ourselves. We did a diversity report at the end of last year. And all of these are there to help the sector navigate, adapt to the challenges and the opportunities that kind of we're faced with as a whole. As I said, we are cross-industry and we're an advocate. And so we partner with all sorts of industry friends, I'll call them, and push forward the agenda and the advancement of our sector, whether that be hosting conferences or events or partnerships, or kind of featuring with good friends such as yourselves today to talk about kind of the benefits of going into graduate education. The second part of that is helping clients find excellent candidates, like people like yourselves who are listening in today. So whether that be if you register your interest through one of our channels, kind of either MBA.com or the test or Business Because or through the MBA tour, we help people be able to find you. So that's a key part of that matching service. And then the third part is, of course, the assessment. So, of course, we have the GMAC. We do have a number of other tests as well. And look, we're very well aware that this is one part of the admissions journey. And it is a part that is often the kind of, let's say, the only one comparable objective data point often in an admissions process. But our core part of the business is to ensure, and this is a key part of our business, but we do that in a way where we're trying to ensure that we develop and evolve our testing to ensure that that it's meeting the needs of the market, the business schools and the candidates. So yes, we can talk a little bit more about the test in a moment, but just to kind of give you that the full picture of what we do, because I do think it's a lot more than people think.
Yeah, Nalisha, I mean, thank you for all that. Super interesting for me, first of all. And Bara has been working in test prep forever. And I think most people don't realize all that GMAC is doing. It's so much more than, a test that scares the crap out of people. The branch of Business Because, which is a great source of information about schools and careers afterwards, to the MBA tour, which is an amazing platform to meet schools and get to know, admissions officers and so forth. So that's really interesting. And thank you for that contextual intro. Yeah, I'll turn it over to Bara. I don't know if you have any comments.
Yeah, well, I just want you to know, I've been working with the GMAT for decades now, and I love the test. I mean, it's like, people being so scared. It's like I always tell my clients, like, every question is like being on a different dance. Right. And so that's how I approach the test, but we could talk about that later. I want to hear a little bit more about the future of graduate education in Europe, and specifically what prompted the two of you, GMAC and Imperial, to come onto MBA Waves today together.
Either one of you.
Just say from my side, listen, beyond being absolute fans of Nalisha and her London-based team, GMAC is obviously a critical partner to business schools, not just in the UK, but globally, of course. And, we engage with GMAC in all the sort of, expected channels, GMAS, MBA Tour, Business Because, and other channels as well. But we also engage with GMAC events worldwide, regional, as well as sort of annual conference, for example. And then, Imperial College Business School staff do sit on special advisory groups as well. I will also say that in the past, our Vice Dean of Education has sat on GMAC's board. And this year, specifically, I was on the advisory board for the Leadership Conference as well. So we're big fans of GMAC and the team here there in London.
Anything else, Nalisha, to add to that?
I mean, that was so complimentary. I echo the sentiments, Phil. Absolutely. It's absolutely imperative that for us, and for all of the reasons I talked about, previously as part of that kind of advocacy, advancing the sector, it's really important that we are really, really collaborative and engaged with everyone in the sector. And Joel's team work very closely with us, as I said, as do many of our key business school clients, and they have various different roles which are kind of part of the evolution of GMAC and GMAT as well. So we are often at conferences or on panels and things together, and we thought that we kind of the last time we connected, we were talking about some very similar topics, so we thought this would be a perfect opportunity to kind of fuse them together.
Wonderful. It's great to have both of you.
Thank you. So, guys, and this is really to either of you, what are some of the major trends, opportunities, or even threats to education in Europe as the two of you see it today?
Well, I think this is a great one for Nalisha, given the research they just published.
Sure, I'm happy to. I'll try not to take the rest of the hour. I'll try and let you say something, Joel. So look, I think it's been a super pivotal time in the GME sector. Well, for the whole planet, right? It's been a really pivotal point in time, and I think for graduate education, the choice for candidates has grown so much, not just the size of the market with so many people doing some, more interesting things, but the type, the format, the style, traditional, non-traditional, micro, stackable, online, hybrid, there's so much out there. And COVID tightened that, but also it's really shifted for many people their own priorities and their own goals. What are they looking for? What's going to give them purpose? And I think where we sit is kind of in that interesting, exciting time where, yes, you have all of those things. You've got opportunities and threats as well as I guess you can often spin opportunities and threats in both ways, right? So I'll talk about them more specifically as topics, and then delve within kind of the things that need to be thought about within those. But I recently worked on a report which has actually been super interesting, super exciting, and it's called The Future of Graduate Management Education as Envisaged by the European Deans. So it was based on interviews with 19 of the top European deans, and it was trying to understand what they thought, what they thought was coming up, what they thought was needed in the sector in order for it to kind of advance along at the pace that is required in the world of business, and society. They summed it up in the report. We condensed it into 5 themes. I'll run you through a couple of them, which I think are really kind of poignant, and I'd also add a couple of my own, which I know that Joel has some thoughts on. So I'm sure that he'll be able to kind of pick up from there. But I think that the one around the first one that came out was, of course, digitalization and technology. And I think that none of this, that's not a new concept, right? But I think for business schools who were offering very traditional face-to-face on campus MBA programs, that was a big shift. That was a big shift in how they delivered education. And I think the trend there is really looking at how it's utilized within that face-to-face environment. So yes, there is still huge benefit in being face-to-face. And in fact, I think there's lots of things that you can't replicate in the online environment. But for me, I think that it was kind of that recognition that's a baseline now. So it's how you then adapt your content, your pedagogy, your outputs and in and around that, and your experience, your user experience. What does that look like? It's not good enough to kind of hodgepodge things together. For me, though, on this, the kind of key trend is around how we are not only utilizing, thinking about teaching, but how are we as an industry planning for the societal shifts that technology such as blockchain, metaverse, more work around data privacy, what will that do for our society and the future of work? So when we're thinking about everyone going into these programs because they're thinking about what they want to do with their careers and how they'll be lifelong leaders, what does that look like? How can we plan for that? So I think that's a really key trend and one that really needs a lot of focus, both from candidates, from the business schools, but also as the industry, as a sector. And I think kind of leading into that a little bit is the kind of the theme around business for society or business for good, and I'm wrapping a lot of things into there. I'm wrapping kind of CSR, ESG, ethics. I'm kind of using it under this umbrella for the purposes of kind of not taking up 2 hours of time. But, I think, as we have seen and continue to see the impacts on society, the planet, etc., of having a business world where the bottom line is the fundamental value output. And I think that it's great to see that that learners want different, that many corporates want different, and so that kind of pushes the sector not only to think about what they're teaching in terms of content, and I know Imperial have some great content to talk about here, but also how they behave as a company themselves. And so I think that's a really interesting element of that. The other one I will just pick up on quickly is that concept of, and this, again, it's been around as a concept for a long time, but this concept of lifelong learning. And actually what I mean is this need to ensure that you can adapt and top up and know how to continually evolve, because that's really what's going to make a leader. That's what makes a leader, and I think that's what's going to be even more important in leadership roles going forward, is how are we equipping leaders to be able to connect the dots, deal with ambiguity, plan for many scenarios, and be ready to kind of do all of those things, not be an expert in every single area, but understand how to talk the language of all of the different elements that are involved in making a decision, because it no longer exists within kind of, okay, this is going to happen and this is going to be the output. It has all a myriad of different outputs. So I think those are the kind of challenges that the sector needs to navigate and is navigating. I'm seeing some great pockets of amazing innovation happening at the business schools. And I think this is really what the benefit of going into graduate management education is, to give you that time and capacity to take a step back and look at all of those things, as we go into, an even faster moving, even more complex environment.
That seems like that's amazing. I mean, it's amazing to hear all that. I mean, it's super exciting, and I love hearing how the academy and the affiliate organizations that are working with the academy is that you're really thinking about these things. So thank you for that explanation. And I'm going to punt it over to Joel and say, how is Imperial using, you mentioned science earlier, right? That you've got a lot of science in your program. So how are you responding to these trends in the industry and overall?
Yeah, no, there's not. I think if you haven't read that report and you do have an interest in sort of what's happening, what the future of European GME looks like, it's excellent. I'd say maybe only complement it with the recent employers survey report that's come out as well. I mean, those are two pieces that I would definitely check out if you're sort of trying to get a handle on what's happening in Europe and what might employers be expecting of business schools. I think that links back to what we're doing in Imperial, and certainly a lot of top business schools are thinking about right now is how do we better manage an end-to-end student experience or student life cycle. And of course, relating back to sort of digitalization, how technology might help us offer improvements that are scalable across, increasingly large program portfolios and numbers of students we're having back on campus now. I think one of the things we're trying to do in Imperial certainly is to take advantage of the parent university and the resources available there. So when you think about sort of our MBA programs, giving sort of access to the broader innovation infrastructure at the university is one way that we can sort of offer something different and competitive versus other top MBA programs and schools, especially for those students that are maybe curious about or committed to launching new ventures, taking new research to market, or simply going down that sort of entrepreneurship, corporate venturing track once they return to the labor market.
So thank you, Joel. So I want to just jump into this next idea, because for those of us in the MBA world often talk about finding the right fit. And there are tons of fantastic MBA programs out there, but each of them has their own, unique flavor of delivering the nuts and bolts of an MBA. And a lot of it comes down to culture. So Joel, could you please tell us about the culture at Imperial?
Yeah, listen, when I think about the culture of Imperial, there's sort of three things I would mention. There's sort of the essential element. 9 out of 10 students at Imperial College Business School are international. And certainly I think candidates, regardless of where they come from, really are attracted to that academic excellence that is sort of what Imperial College London has built its reputation on. And specifically the business school, it's that fusion of business and technology advantages that we can really offer here at Imperial that makes it sort of a standout option for top candidates. And the sort of final bit of that sort of essential elements is South Kensington location. It's a really beautiful place to come to your MBA degree in London. The second bit I would mention is certainly related to entrepreneurship. You know, Imperial College Business School is very much a key player in the Imperial Enterprise Lab. It's a college-wide initiative, so it's not just sort of an incubator for the business school. The idea is we bring together engineering, natural sciences, medicine, and business school stakeholders, let's say, to work together to launch new ventures or scale new ventures. And certainly the Enterprise Lab is a key way or center point of coordination for that. And that will be something that will be different at the business school. We obviously have our White City campus where we have the iHub and our new satellite campus for the business school as well, located in scale space. So again, there is quite an ample infrastructure on entrepreneurship. So, you know, I think a lot of business schools talk about entrepreneurship, but we can offer sort of that technology infused business and STEM background and access to resources that perhaps, you know, other cultures can't have that same claim to the way we do at Imperial College Business School. And then finally, I would say that, you know, for us, co-curriculars really are critical to the broader teaching and learning experience. And we decided that the best way for us to deliver impactful co-curricular activities were to merge careers in our student life team, so that everything that happens out of the side of the classroom, let's say, has some coherency and is coordinated, so that we're working on not only the hard skills and the academic learning, but also giving them access to a broad portfolio of sort of transformational experiences they can use to really meet those career outcomes at graduation and sort of scale those after graduation as well.
Joel, I thought I might ask, like, if you want to expand a little bit about what White City is. I think that kind of went by fast, and
so fun fact about Imperial College: everyone thinks about South Kensington because that's sort of, you know, what they know. But I think Imperial College has something like 9 campuses across London. 7 of those are medical teaching facilities. But White City is where it's sort of a part of London that's really being redeveloped. There's a lot of big corporates that have gone there, and the idea is to take applied research, work with industry, and sort of rejuvenate that part of the city as well. And so Imperial College has a 2-part campus, a north and a south campus at White City. The north part is pretty much all built out. Again, a heavy focus on scientific research and applied research for this sort of sciences. But on the south part of that new campus we have at White City is where we're building up the new business school and other facilities as well. And there's an organization called Scale Space that's sort of an incubator that has partnered with Imperial College, and part of their building there is actually business school teaching and learning space as well. So students can both study at South Kensington, but on some occasions we do take them to the White City location as well.
It's good. And with the deep roots in, like, sorry, Nalisha, go ahead.
I was just going to jump in and say I visited for the first time a couple of months ago, and I was just so impressed because it's been, even though it's probably only been like a year or so since I've been in that area, like it's so developed, and it's got such a nice kind of like, you know, I want to say innovative feel, but, you know, it's kind of got that startup vibe, and it's got lots of like creatives and people who are kind of interested in, you know, in trying new things and experimentation. You've kind of got that, you can feel it in kind of all of the kind of coffee shops and the restaurants and things. So it's nice.
Now we even have a new Soho House location just down the block.
Yes.
Oh,
Nice.
okay.
you know it's made it when a Soho House pops up, right?
Right. So would you call this like kind of a Silicon Valley of London, this area?
There's tough competition for that. I imagine our friends in Cambridge would make an argument that they're sort of that area. So I think there's a lot of technology and innovation that's happening in and around London. I think it's a great place to come do an MBA just because of that. There's so much investment right now in that.
Nice. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the admissions process at Imperial. I'm giving a bunch of airtime to Joel. I think it's his turn a little bit. So many of our listeners today are thinking about applying to your program. So what should they expect? What are some suggestions you'd like to offer in terms of being a great applicant for Imperial?
Yeah, no, for me, it's what can applicants expect? I would hope that they would expect extensive engagement between that first indication of interest they might have sent us about a potential interest in studying with us, through to support as they work to submit a completed application form, as they complete their admissions interviews, and as they meet other requirements such as submitting a GMAT exam. So lots of engagement. I think we really tried to take the approach that initial interest to working through to actually having an offer and starting with us is a broader onboarding experience, and sort of really thinking in smart ways about how to offer richer onboarding experience is something we're really focusing on in my unit in marketing, recruitment, admissions. One of the things we have done is sort of put additional resources into the team. And so we have a new candidate experience manager whose job is specifically to make sure that there's a better orchestrated onboarding experience, and particularly once candidates have an offer and as they wait to actually join their program and be on campus, let's say. So lots of support and engagement all along the process. I think we are quite clear about what the requirements are and how the process works. And then, of course, once candidates have made it through the application process successfully, they can continue to expect support right up until they join us for study here on campus.
Nice. Sounds pretty thorough, accessible.
Well, how about GMAT or the executive assessment? How is that factored in? And someone actually from the audience, Thomas, a colleague of ours, has asked about test waivers, so we can probably fold that in as well. How important are they in the application process?
Yeah, it's interesting with the GMAT exam. It's only technically required on a couple of our programs, but a lot of people still take the exam to send it to us as an additional sort of reference point. But it's not formally required, for example, for our finance programs. But a lot of finance programs still send the GMAT exam. I would say that what's useful about the GMAT, and particularly for programs where it's required as part of the process, is it gives us a sort of standard set of indicators we can compare across candidates, across geographies and industries and sectors, and of course, previous areas of study. So, for us, being a school that, what looks at transcripts quite closely and previous academic performance, and particularly in the quantitative space, it's quite important for us. I would say those indicators that we're watching through GMAT, and particularly for the ranked programs where we do actually require the GMAT exam, provides a very helpful and complementary source of indicators for us to look at as we look at building cohorts across our 20 or so programs that we have in the portfolio now.
Great, thanks.
So since this is MBA Waves and our focus is largely full-time MBA programs, just to be clear, I'm pretty sure the GMAT is required for that program.
For the full-time MBA program and for our MSc in International Management.
Okay. And for the you have an executive MBA as well, I believe, and that one is the EA that you use? Yeah.
We accept it. It's not a formal requirement.
Okay. Nice.
Do you accept the EA for your full-time MBA? Some schools do that.
We do not. It must be the GMAT exam.
Okay. Thank you.
And that made me think of something else. Like, say somebody's, university grades were not the best. Can that be, offset by a great GMAT score, or what's your take on that? We're pretty strict on previous study and performance at the undergraduate level, and we're pretty transparent about what we require. So if you have any doubts, of course, you can get in touch with us as a candidate, but I think we're pretty clear on what those requirements are. So I think the GMAT's a helpful addition, and we certainly pay attention to it for those ranked programs where we require the test result. Right. But we are certainly going to put a special emphasis on previous academic performance, and then for the full-time MBA, what the professional experience was after graduation. Mm-hmm. And when COVID hit the world, several schools around the world did a temporary waiver for the GMAT. Some decided to keep that. Some have accepted alternative tests, either their own in-house one or LSATs or Series 7 or something like that. Is that the case? Are there any waiver possibilities for the ranked programs?
Generally, no. We're pretty insistent on having a GMAT exam. Certainly, there's special cases can come up, but generally, it's a standard requirement for all applicants to our full-time MBA and, of course, our MSc in Management program.
No, fair enough. That makes sense. So, coming back to Nalisha, maybe you could tell us about how GMAC partners with business schools around the world to create an assessment experience that is as efficient, equitable, and comfortable both for applicants and institutions alike. And second to that, maybe honing in on the relationship with Imperial specifically, because Joel's here with us today.
Sure. I guess I'll start off by saying, and kind of following on from what Joel said, no one ever got in with just their GMAT score alone, right? So this is all admissions processes are holistic, and they're all tailored to the program and to the institution that you're going to, and they will all have different requirements. So, I think that sometimes there is a danger to, I've spoken to candidates before who've been like, oh, well, I got a 650, I'm never going to get in, and that statement is is problematic, because there are plenty of great applications that I've seen. There's plenty of great students and alumni I know who had 650, less than 650. And so it all kind of depends on your entire application and who you're going to. And that's kind of why it's really important to do kind of the exploratory work and to kind of have the conversations and explore the right programs for you. So I guess I'll just start off with that. But I mean, in terms of the kind of partnerships, like it feeds into that really. It's the reason we are so engaged with all of our kind of, all of our member institutions and even those who are not are to understand what is it that you're looking to measure from a student. Because of course there's the element, which is a key element, is, are they going to be able to academically complete this program? Because we're not setting up people to fail here. This is a big undertaking to undertake an MBA program, and it would be irresponsible to take people on board who, there wasn't that confidence that they'd be able to manage, because that's unfair on both parties. So, there is there's a constant, as Joel's touched upon, we have various different, focus groups, committees, we have working groups, people, our business schools meet with our psychometricians, our product teams. There is constant engagement in how we develop our services and our products and our assessment. And I think that includes some of the, you mentioned a little bit about inclusion and diversity. We have offices across the world, so we bring in that voice from global candidates and schools. So, not just from the school side, we often are conducting kind of anonymous market research into the candidate space, as well as direct candidate research. And so we're always looking to understand, motivations. We're trying to understand kind of variances in where kind of certain regions do perform in different ways. So we're always trying to understand those kind of elements and feed that into how we develop our test. We want this to be continue to be a tool which is valuable globally because it takes in those factors. So that's a really important part of what we do.
But just to comment on that bit, I mean, it's very interesting because the GMAT is American originally, right? As the MBA is an American thing from, 70 years ago at this point. It's become a global phenomenon. It's been massive in Europe for a long time. I think INSEAD was the first one in 49 or 50. You have about 30% of the top ranked FT MBA programs represented in Europe and about 20 in Asia at this point. There's been a lot of growth in Asia. And it's very interesting that you mentioned global offices, which can really take into account feedback from, I guess, institutions, but also for test takers, perhaps. I don't know if that's part of it. Yeah, to make sure that it is inclusive and not favoring, of course it's in English, right? So there's already the hurdle of somebody, say, from Korea that has to take a test that's far from their language, that's in a language far from their native language. But there's a cultural element, right? So to the questions, it's been a subject over the years, and it's interesting to hear that you've been addressing that way. And it's very encouraging.
Yeah, and equally, I've just kind of, I know because Bara loves the GMAT. Equally, we're taking on board feedback from, we're very aware of kind of test prep organizations and working closely with them to understand what feedback they're getting, as well as we're very aware of people, industry friends across, whether that be publishers, journalists. We are constantly taking on board what's happening in the marketplace, as well as the kind of direct feedback and needs of the marketplace as well.
Yeah, I think starting about 15 years ago, I started going to meetings in New York that it was GMAC and a whole bunch of test prep companies. That it was this lovely meeting and a lovely dialogue back and forth that you guys hosted, which was, I think it was really the first of the test prep companies that I experienced reaching out to or test companies reaching out to test prep companies. So we really appreciated it. We really appreciate those dialogues, those conversations. Of course, we always want to find out little tidbits, right?
Of course.
Are there any that you can share with us?
This reminds me of it, in no way as glamorous of, and I don't know whether people are watching Stranger Things, but it reminds me of Hopper's being interviewed quite a bit, isn't he? And they're like, so what's happening in the next season? I'm like, oh no,
exactly.
Exactly.
What's on the next test?
Look, what I will say is, and as I have said, and without being too much of a kind of elusive interviewee, we are continuing to evolve our products and services in all spaces. You've mentioned a little bit about inclusion and diversity, and that is something that's really important to us and something right at the forefront at the moment. We just launched, in fact, we just had the first round of applications for a talent and opportunity scholarship. So we're welcoming people. We're talking a lot about people coming into graduate management education from underrepresented groups. And for me, I think anyone can identify as underrepresented. So it's open to all, but with the aim of bringing in kind of people from non-business backgrounds, more women, people from LGBT communities, socioeconomic diverse groups. So we really, we want to encourage that this is a space for lots of different people. And what we're doing as part of that scholarship is not just offering the test, but we're offering the support along the journey. So, for example, you will have access to prep, you will have an admissions consultant through your journey, you'll have access to a wellbeing app as well. So there's lots of things that we understand. It's not just the test itself. There's a whole part and process of that build up to going to business school, even if you're well versed with what the different properties of information are. And so not to evade your question, because I wasn't doing the politician's answer there. I wanted to make sure I talked about the scholarship. But, as part of that, we will continue to we are continuing, and we've got some things in the pipeline which will help that matching service even better.
Great. Thanks.
So thorough answer. I love it. Thank you. So maybe some logistic things, in terms of visiting campus. Joel, if people want to come as interested applicants, are they welcome to visit campus at this point, or is it more by virtual? Obviously since COVID, things have shifted. Where are we at now? People who want to check out Imperial.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, because I think a lot of schools now that, things are opening up again, to decide how much outreach do we want to do, how much on campus do we want to do. I think what we did learn under the pandemic is that we can do digital engagement first and do it well and see good engagement numbers. So I would say, what's the purpose of an on-campus visit? Certainly there are sort of more general events for candidates that are earlier in the phase of deciding whether or not the institution is right for them and the business school and our programs are right for them. Generally, I would say, we try and host on-campus activities that are very sort of action-oriented. And so sort of admissions days where a candidate has sort of submitted their application, can come through and complete their final stages of that admissions process, aka interviews and things like that, hear from faculty, experience the physical space on campus to make sure that we're the right choice for them if they indeed are made an offer for the program. Having said that, again, there are some general activities where earlier applicants can come visit us, but I think we're trying to focus on sort of more action-oriented events when they do come on campus. We are continuing to do a lot of digital outreach. Again, 9 out of 10 students that are at the business school are international, so digital is quite important. And then some markets, we are starting to get out there and put some boots on the ground again and do face-to-face activities. We're getting more creative, I think, about how we do that as well. So we recently hosted an event that was sort of live streamed from London to Singapore. We leveraged alumni support on the ground there, and we're able to have a team in London sort of virtually participate in that event for offer holders in Singapore as well. So I think we're open to creative options. Candidates are welcome to come to campus. I think candidates should ask themselves, what's the purpose of coming to campus, especially if they're coming from abroad, and to not shy away from digital engagement via online events as well.
Sure. So part of what I'm hearing is it kind of depends where you are in the process, if it makes sense to come in person or not. And there's more and more digital opportunities to do that. And let's face it, it is kind of a luxury to visit campuses if you're coming from abroad, right? Not everyone has the money or time to do that, or time off of work and so forth.
And there's a carbon footprint as well, I guess.
100%. Yeah.
You talked a bit, Joel, about being really interested in I don't know if you called it the lifespan, but the span of the student.
The end-to-end student experience, or the student life cycle.
Right, the student life cycle. So I want to just hop to the other side of that life cycle and talk a little bit about the ROI. It's a small fortune to go to business school. And what about careers? So can you talk a little bit about the career services at Imperial and what graduates can expect in terms of employment opportunities, both for the local applicants and the ones that are coming from abroad?
Yep, no, absolutely. And I think depending on the market you're applying from, whether it's a 2-year program or a 1-year program being the sort of established norm, I'd say the advantage of coming to a school in the UK and indeed Europe as a broader region is that typically programs are shorter and in and around a year in duration. Certainly that's the case at Imperial College Business School. So less time out of the marketplace, less expense from a tuition fee perspective and cost of living perspective, but it does mean you need to get a whole lot more done in just 12 months. And so I would say that one of the areas that we particularly excel at the business school is the career services. And again, that's sort of joined up with our student life offering. So I'll sort of summarize, the basics of what we do. I will mention that we are an MBA CSEA member school. And so we're constantly benchmarking and talking with other top business schools to understand how we can continue to improve the way we help students ultimately obtain their career outcomes at graduation, but scale those outcomes over time as well. So pre-program, we have a careers primer, and you as an MBA student do get to meet with one of our careers consultants as you onboard to the program. So it starts before you even get to campus. And so what we want to make sure is that if you have to be in and out in about 12 months, that there's proactive thinking about how am I going to develop my career, how am I going to use the MBA experience, and all those different things I can do in the co-curricular space to really get to where I want to go professionally afterwards. One of the key things that our career and student life area does is this offer personal leadership journey, PLJ, and that goes in tandem with another program we have called LEADS, which is sort of about leadership skills and ethics training. But the PLJ is offered by our careers team specifically, and that's really about self-awareness, it's about career strategy, and it's about professional development. So it's sort of like a curriculum that runs along the sort of teaching and learning curriculum content of the program. So it's like a big deal for us. Then other services, again, we offer tons of activities and ways to engage with the careers team. We obviously have careers consultants, we have the career induction day, we do strength scope, but some of the other interesting sessions we have, executive impact and presentation skills. We do industry insight sessions. We give students, MBA students, access to headhunter databases. And so we do a lot to support them while they're actually on campus. We do, being a school that's sort of about STEM and business, work with a partner called GMAC. They have a great platform where they use AI to sort of benchmark at an individual student level and with an understanding of what sort of other students' career outcomes were and how you can sort of tweak your CV to make sure that you're positioning yourself accurately. And then, of course, we have the advantage, I think, in the UK today where students that come and do a full-time program are able to stay on for a period of 2 years initially as well. And so that makes it kind of an attractive destination to come. And so if getting some international work experience as part of your MBA here in the UK and at Imperial, there is that ability to stay on afterwards as well. So we do a lot of employer relations work to make sure that if you do want to stay in London and work for a bit, that we've got good and helpful and established relationships with employers in and around London as well.
Speaking about careers, I wanted to kind of spin it back to Nalisha, the GMAT is obviously a very important assessment thing. I like the way you kind of spun it as it would be irresponsible to admit people in without being sure that they can handle the coursework. It's very true. It would be a waste of everyone's time. So obviously it's very important for the entry point, right? But what about leaving? What are some of the implications with respect to the GMAT and careers post MBA or master's degree, do you think? I think you're on mute. Let me just unmute you. Oh, I think you have to do it.
Apologies. So yeah, on the GMAT side, so look, some employers do look at the GMAT score. They use that as part of their. I've seen it with a number of the consulting firms, but I guess wider than that, we. There are a number of arms in which we support that kind of career exploration because it's part and parcel of your business school or exploration, I think, is understanding what career that you are looking to go to and whether that business school can support that journey. And so that's why that's where I think some of the other arms of GMAC come in. We have we have business because they have a fantastic team of writers and researchers who kind of are always looking at that kind of that ROI perspective. What is it that you're looking to get from which business schools are kind of working very closely with certain sectors or employers or topics. We then also kind of can give a bit more guidance, I guess, on, we work, as Joel mentioned, actually, that we have a corporate recruiters survey. So we, as the title says, we survey a number of corporate recruiters to try and understand what it is that they are looking for from candidates, and so that is something that is used from both business school side, lesser so on the candidate side, I think, but I would definitely encourage people to go and have a look at that, because there is, there are things in there which, it's divided by certain sectors, it's divided by country. You can have a look at information, and they're based on kind of, certain preferences that sectors and regions have in terms of employing people. And I think those kind of things are really useful as well in supporting your business school decision. So all, I guess, part and parcel of that experience.
Thank you.
Thanks. So I want to go back to the end part of the life cycle of the student at Imperial, Joel, and I hear that really a school can be measured by its alumni, right? That's what students are looking at. So what are your alumni doing, and what kind of services exist for them at Imperial?
Yeah, no, listen, I couldn't agree more. And I think there's not all alumni created equally. And I think different schools had different kinds of alumni, and they serve different sort of segments of sort of the workforce. And I think it's great that we've had that diversity. If I had to sort of talk about what's happening in the alumni space at Imperial College Business School, I would say that we are under new leadership. We had an absolutely fantastic alumni relations director. Unfortunately, she was scooped up by the team at Cambridge Judge recently. But what that meant is that we were able to do some scooping of our own, and we hired away a great profile from the London School of Economics. So she's joined us as our new alumni relations director. She brings with her, obviously, tons of experience from a quite different kind of institution, still leading Russell Group University. But lots of fresh ideas and initiatives. And so we're quite excited about what that new leadership means for our alumni community. I would say that something that's sort of different about what we do from an alumni relations perspective is that, again, part of the positioning of Imperial College Business School is sort of, technology-infused business, or STEM in business and in London. That's kind of our sort of sweet spot, let's say. So you think about, well, how does that play out as an alumni? So when we, the business school, host alumni events, we don't just host alumni events for business school students, we also invite alumni from the Faculty of Engineering, the Faculty of Natural Sciences, and the Faculty of Medicine as well. There's only 4 faculties at Imperial College. And so that means that we facilitate a lifelong relationship, not just among business school graduates from our 20 or so programs, but also we invite and engage with graduates from the other faculties as well. So you really get that lifelong advantage of STEM and business from Imperial College Business School. And I'd say sort of the last is providing lots of opportunities for engagement for alumni with our graduates, candidates, and of course, current students. And so up front, we allow our alumni to participate and do many of our MBA admissions interviews. And I think that's quite a good way to both make sure our alumni feel like they're participating in the building of those future cohorts, but also they can set realistic expectations with incoming candidates as well. And I think it's the most fair approach we can take. Obviously, we love to have alumni on campus to interact with different student clubs and professional areas of interest groups, because they can provide sort of that uniquely alumni perspective on areas where students might want to go after their programs. And then, of course, we love to promote their successes. We had one of our MBA graduates who was one of those top 40 under 40 Forbes rankings recently. So we amplify and promote their successes as well. So hopefully through all those activities, the new leadership we have in place and offering something different from an alumni network perspective keeps them engaged and also excited about giving back to the institution over time as well.
That sounds fantastic. I mean, it's the alumni engagement is everything, and whatever this new person coming from LSE, she's been there for a couple months now, or she has. I think it's probably been 3 or 4 months. Everything seems to go so quick post-pandemic, but I still consider her a recent addition to the team. She's fantastic. Yeah, like you said, another fantastic institution. It's interesting. It's a non-business school, right? More in the political science arena, but still the same needs for alumni. So, look, as we wind down the episode, we have about 10 minutes left. What's in store for Imperial in the future? Any new projects, initiatives? What do you want to share, Joel? Yeah, no, listen, I think what you'll see from us is a lot of what we're trying to do at the business school is sort of aligned with the SDGs, and certainly Imperial College London is big into things like climate change and tackling climate change. And so we sort of thought about, what are our strategic areas of engagement at the business school? How do those align with what the university or what we call the college is doing? What should we be involved in that matters to incoming candidates, current students, and graduates? And how do we make
practical things happen around the research and sort of corporate engagement through our research centers. And so rather than say, these are specific things you can expect over the coming 6, 12, or 18 months, I would rather sort of list the 5 areas of sort of strategic engagement so that you can keep an eye out for activities that might be coming through the pipeline aligned with these 5 areas. So the first and foremost for us is digital transformation. We do have a Center for Digital Transformation. It's a big part of what we're doing today, both from a student experience and delivery perspective, but what we're doing is a business school and a college, and certainly what our corporate partners are looking at right now. And again, the Center for Digital Transformation led our delegation to Davos this year. So they're quite important for us. Entrepreneurship, key part of our culture, not just the business school, but the broader university. And we've got a relatively unique ecosystem around innovation and helping new ventures be created, but also helping them scale after graduation. Our finance programs are top ranked, so financial and institutional resilience is another big theme for us. And so, again, the conference that we're here at in Portugal this week is actually co-sponsored between our computing department and the Faculty of Engineering, together with the Brevin Howard Center at the Business School, which is one of the centers focused on finance. Health management and policy, of course, we do have an MSc program in that area, but doing a lot around thinking about what is the future of health. One of our top faculty members, who is also the president of the Royal Economic Society, sat on Macron's COVID sort of task force, let's say. So it's a big area of what we're doing. And then again, I mentioned sustainability before. So expect lots from us in the sustainability space, and certainly with the launch of that new carbon capture or decarbonization center with Hitachi, both between the business school and the broader university, is one to watch at the business school as well.
Nice.
Awesome. That's a lot. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's very textured. Nalisha, I'm going to punt that over to you. You did talk about all of these initiatives that are constantly happening and evolving, but I wonder if you could bullet point any of the changes on the horizon that our viewers would want to know about at GMAC or the GMAT in particular.
Sure.
Bara especially wants to know.
Of course. So look, for us, the things that will that are on the horizon are kind of the continued research, data, reports, and understanding and articulating what's happening in the market and responding to that through through our own behavior. As you said, through the assessment, there are there is work to constantly evolve what we're doing. We have just released something which is not a test, but it's a business fundamentals course. So it's to help with the kind of the statistical analysis. It helps kind of people get ready for the business school. They have access to it for like 12 months. It's focused a little bit more on the kind of kind of bite-sized chunks that you can refer back to. So it's kind of a reference piece. So we're thinking about how we help people navigate not just kind of that choice and how to get to business school, but also how they kind of manage their success. And again, touching a little bit more on the career side as well, we're kind of taking input from the recruiters there as well. So look, for us, I know that you would like some more specifics around the test, but you can be assured that we will continue to look at our user experience. We will continue to look at what value people get, both candidate and the business school, not just the business school. So, really important that we kind of, I note that, we're looking at how we give more to our stakeholders and the industry as a whole. So that's from our side.
You mean you're not going to tell me the algorithm code? No algorithm.
I'll send you on WhatsApp in a minute.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So we already talked about visiting campus and so forth and digital opportunities to do so, but just to finish off, for those who are interested in learning more, Joel, Nalisha, if there's an email address or website you wanted to put, you can put it in the private chat and we can copy it, put that into the comments so people can see on the screen. You can post that for people. It's up to you. Maybe an admissions email address. Anything you want to mention that's coming up? Any webinars coming up in the next coming days, weeks, or whatever on either side, GMAC or Imperial?
Yeah, from the Imperial side, pretty much, I think we have 14 sort of events happening between the months of July and August. 13 of those, so basically 95% of them, are online events. So there's tons of online events you can attend, regardless of whether you're in your home city and working, or on holidays or traveling. there's a lot of online events you can attend over the summer. So certainly register your interest with us, whether you have a very clear idea of which program and which intake, or maybe just a suite of the programs, or just want to come to the business school for something else. Just register your interest with us, and we'll work with you to help you sort of funnel down towards, which program makes the right sense, most sense for you, and what timelines you should be looking at, both from an application perspective and sort of thinking about what comes next as well, and sort of planning your career more broadly. So again, I have a team of about 45 people, and that's their full-time job. So we're here to help. Just get in touch.
Yeah, nice. Okay. And Nalisha, anything to add before we wrap up?
Sure. We have a whole host of events happening over the summer, in person as well as virtual. We've got quite a lot. We're doing quite a few in Europe, and just from our perspective, I'll be on the road at some of them, but we are. Most of my team have come from business schools as well. They know the sector really well. With many of them, I think between us we counted, and we had like almost 100 years worth of experience in business schools, which is a little bit terrifying. Look, we do know the sector, and so do come and engage with us. We will give our independent opinions on, and we know how kind of the admissions processes work, and we kind of understand the business schools well. And look, I wanted to just give my role is regional director for Europe, so I want to kind of just final point is just say, look, we have some really, really exciting things happening at the institutions in Europe. It's a really the last couple of years have seen some amazing things coming out of our programs, our research centers, our institutes, and the employment and alumni connections. So these communities of what I have observed and also part of is are really something really something special. And I think that there is a huge focus in this region to do good. So I really have a real belief that kind of studying within Europe, and I'm not just saying that because of my role, but I do think that some of the things that are happening in these programs and within those alumni communities are exceptional, and it's amazing to see so much good happening for the benefit of society as a whole, for climate as a whole, and for the planet. So it would I would very much welcome your conversations and your applications and your input and your thoughts into joining us.
And Europe has very much often been leading the way in terms of like data protection, climate, all this kind of stuff. So Europe is really a great place to study business and other things, and to live and work, as we know. Yeah. Listen, Nalisha, first of all, thank you so much. Very interesting. I've learned so much about GMAC and the test and all the other things that surround what you guys do. Very nice to meet you. Joel, great to see you as always. And thank you for all the insight about Imperial. Very cool. Just to say, don't forget to tune in next week on MBA Waves. We have another fantastic episode lined up. And for the full programming schedule, check out MBAWaves.com for the schedule, as well as past episodes where we have the recordings for this one and all the others. So thank you so much, everyone.
Huge thank you, Eric, Bara, Joel. Pleasure to spend the evening with you.
Thank you, everyone. It was great to catch up.
Yep. Have a great afternoon or evening. Bye-bye.